All right, students, welcome back to another Star Tutors live stream. If you haven't been with us before, as I always say, I am Chase, here to guide you through some questions. We've had some questions sent in from some of our members already, so we'll talk about those. And then for any members that are joining us during the live stream, you can ask those questions during the live chat. But we have a few questions that I want to address. And we'll talk a little bit about, some of the general thoughts leading into any SAT exam. I know some of you at the time of making this live stream and live lesson, some of you have a real SAT test coming up pretty soon. If you're not one of those people that has one coming up soon, but you have one in the future, you can always save this video and come back to it at a later time. All of our videos, all of our live lessons are always recorded immediately after and posted on our channel immediately after we are done here. So I encourage you guys to hopefully do that and be a part of that. If you have any questions for me, just make sure that if you have any questions for me after watching the live lesson or any of our tutors, you can post those in the comments section below these videos, and one of our teachers or tutors will respond. If you're joining us for the live lesson today, can you guys give me a thumbs up below the video? Just let me know you're here, and then we'll get started here in just a second. Started in just a second. All right, guys, so a couple things here. The first and foremost, what I want to make sure that we do and make sure that we highlight is that you will all have the opportunity and ability to get ready for the exam on test day, right? That's a very, very important aspect of this. That when you show up to the SAT, you do not want to be just show up just to show up, right? If you have prepared, especially if you've taken the time to prepare, if this is something that you've been interested in and you want to get a great score, it's very important that you think about this as you think about anything else in your life, whether that be an extracurricular that you're passionate about, whether that be a sport, whether anything that it comes down to. It's very, very critical, guys, that you approach this in the same way that you would approach any other activity. And what I mean by that is think about a sport, or if you're in the play, or if you're musical, anything like that. Think about those items, and then think about how long you warm up before you actually start doing those things. Right? There's a reason that your coach has you show up, an hour before practice. There's a reason that you have, you warm up. You warm up your voice before the musical play, right? You don't just show up to show up and just say, well, I guess this is what I'm doing today, right? Instead, we are very thoughtful about what we're doing in our approach beforehand. And the reason that that's so critical is because as many students as I've worked with over the years, it's amazing to me how few students actually do those little things, like do the warm-up. Most of the time, we're so nervous and stressed about the exam and what could happen and all the bad things that could happen that we don't think about how we can put ourselves in the best position possible not to let those things happen. One of the questions we get all the time is, well, what can I be doing, right? If you have this question or concern, right, give me a thumbs up in the chat. What can I be doing prior to the test? Right? What can I be doing the night before? What can I be doing the test day morning? And those are great questions to ask. But it speaks to the anxiety and the stress that comes with this exam. The one thing that you do not want to do under any circumstances is to just to blow it off, right? To just say like, well, I'm not going to do this because, or get defensive about it because you're nervous that you're going to do poorly. If you think that, if you come in with those negative thoughts, in all likelihood that you are going to do poorly. Right, and that's a mindset thing that can always be switched and always be changed. And so it's one of the questions we get all the time. Well, what can I be doing prior to the exam? Well, the good news is, and this is going to be available to our members, but don't forget, guys, that we also have our Star U tutoring app that is free to download with 100 free lesson chapters that we have provided from our content, 500 practice problems, and it is extremely important. Okay, can everybody give me a thumbs up with this below the video? Or if you're a channel member and you're part of the live stream today, you can give me a thumbs up in the live chat. Okay, it is extremely important that you be doing practice problems right away, right prior to taking this exam. And the good news for all of you is free on the App Store and in Google Play. I'll post this now. This is all available for free again. That you can download Star U and have access to 100 free lesson chapters and 500 free practice problems But the most important part about that is that you can be doing them on your phone. Okay, that you can be doing them on your phone. And the reason that that is, again, so critical is because most students, we'll talk about this in a second, but most students don't think about the time, the real time in between taking the exam, right, and when you wake up in the morning. And I'll talk more about that in just a second, but in the meantime, download Star U. Okay, so this is going to be posted. I'll pin this to the top of the page. But this is access for everybody. Okay, so everybody should be doing this on Saturday or whenever it is that you're taking your next test, because this is available for free. And like I said, you guys can all download the app, create a free student account, hit lessons and practice problems on the home screen, and then it doesn't really matter which, in some, although the reading test for the SAT is the first test, right? We all know that as the first section. Thumbs up if you knew that that was the first section. Well, one of the things that we get asked about once students know about this warm-up idea is, well, what should I be doing as part of the warm-up? Now, most students would think, let's do the reading section because that's first. That's true, but don't forget that the writing and language section, give me a thumbs up, guys, if you're watching the recording or part of the live lesson, thumbs up below the video. If you realize that the writing and language section, in terms of getting your mind thinking about the reading section, it's pretty comparable. But the difference is the writing and language section, as many of us know, is easier than the reading section. So it would be my recommendation that if you're going to log into Star U, you're going to be doing these practice problems, that you be doing writing and language, SAT writing and language practice problems while you're sitting in your car driving to the testing center, right? Or while you're standing in line waiting to register. Don't be just sitting there doing nothing. Or even worse, don't be sitting there talking to a friend about how badly you're going to do. Like, oh, I'm so nervous. That energy, that negative energy feeds off each other. So when you're standing there and your friend's like, I'm going to do so bad, I woke up late, blah, blah, blah. If that wasn't you, then don't, I know this sounds kind of harsh, but don't be around that person for the time being, right? You can always be friends after the test, but that's only going to feed into this. And so what you want to do instead is be doing a few practice problems as you're standing there, as you're waiting in line, so that when the first question comes up on the SAT, on the real test, it's not your first question of the day. Okay, again, that can all be done on Star U, and I highly encourage you guys. This is all free, and all of the primary lesson chapters for the SAT reading, writing, and language and math sections can be found right there. So please, please, please make sure that you guys are looking out for that. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is for all of our channel members, and again, I encourage you guys to join. I know I've been talking a lot about this membership program, but it's because we just added this channel membership that is $3 a month. Okay, and later today we're going to be posting our Star Tutors pre-test packet, which has all of these helpful links, along with real SAT practice problems to be doing the morning of the test. Okay, be doing the morning of the test. And I think that is so critical that if you're going to spend money on a book, and I realize that not everybody has the means for $3 a month, but I do think that if you're going to spend money on anything, and you're thinking about going to college, which is already really expensive in itself, $3 a month, if you click the join button below this video, okay, that's all you have to do. And if you get the silver membership, you're going to see this as a post later today with all of our pre-test packet. And these are things that you can be looking at the night before. It's not an overwhelming packet. It's not going to be telling you things that I don't tell you during these live streams. But it is going to be really important that you look at this and you be doing this prior to leaving for the testing center. Okay, doing these things the night before, because we have curated this with helpful links and thoughts that aren't meant to overwhelm you, but instead are meant to show you the best way to approach the exam the night before and the morning of the test. And on that note, we also have a playlist. And guys, again, for this first part of this live stream, I want to talk consistently about the test. It's the test day itself, because that is so critical. And this is a great playlist to take a look at before you guys have your real test, especially if it's one that's coming up. 5, what the most important SAT videos. Okay, so this playlist is coming at you. So check out that playlist. I think it's really important. I would encourage you guys to look at that. But again, along with that playlist and along with our membership, that silver membership gets you not only this pre-test packet, but it also gives you the ability to watch this premium content. Okay, so premium content being videos that we have deemed to be very important. And again, I think that if you're going to buy a book, you're going to purchase anything, this is a very, very good deal for again, for if you're going to purchase something. So look out at that membership program, and then you get access to all of these live membership chats as well. So I think it can be really important. All right, but again, going back to this idea of what do we need to do prior to the test? Well, again, you want to be warming up. We get a lot of questions from students about, well, should I take an energy drink the day before the test? No. Or rather, the morning of the test. If you don't typically take an energy drink the morning of a test at school, don't do it for the SAT. It can only go poorly. Your energy level should already be very high, because if you wake up early, you do a couple practice problems, you get your mind thinking about this stuff, then all of a sudden it's not nearly as overwhelming and you're not thinking about how much energy you need. Don't drink 5 cups of coffee if you don't typically do that before school. You want to approach this in a very similar way to how you approach schoolwork. So as an example, my recommendation is if you go to bed typically at an unreasonable hour, like if you go to bed at 1 in the morning, don't do that, of course. But my recommendation is that you go to bed at 11 p.m. at night for school, right? Then that's a pretty good time. That's a pretty good time to go to bed for the SAT as well. Okay? If you wake up typically at 7 a.m., right, for school, maybe a little bit earlier because we want you to complete these practice problems. But I would say, let's say not 7:30, but 6:30 in the morning, right, for school, 6:30 a.m. for school. Then that's a pretty good time to wake up and do the same thing for the SAT. I wouldn't change anything about your approach from school. And that's, again, another question we get all the time from students is, well, what do I need to do right prior to this? What do I need to do the morning of? What do I need? Don't change anything from school unless your school time is unreasonable. I know some students go to bed like really late at night, 2 in the morning. Don't do that. You do need some energy for this test. It is a 3.5-hour test, and it is more difficult than schoolwork. But otherwise, if you typically go to bed at 11 and you wake up at 6:30 for school, that's 7.5 hours, right? It's not I think 8 hours is the ideal time, they say, but that's 7.5 hours. That's pretty close, and that's pretty good. Okay, so don't change anything if that's typically your schedule. Don't let your parents convince you that you need to wake up early and have a huge breakfast. That can only go poorly. If you do well in school and you don't typically have a huge breakfast, don't do it for the SAT. What happens if your stomach starts to hurt? We've had students that, no joke, have needed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the reading section because they ate a huge breakfast. Well, then we can't do that. Thumbs up if that makes sense, guys. Thumbs up below the video if that idea makes sense. It's very, very critical that we don't approach this in any new way from what we see at school, especially if our school routine is pretty consistent, right? 11 p.m., 6:30 a.m. That's a pretty easy schedule. That's a pretty good schedule for a normal student, and we don't want to change anything about that, especially if we do well in school, right? So again, get a normal rest. Make sure that you're waking up. Make sure that you're waking up with plenty of time to do these warm-up problems, to maybe have a little something to eat so that you're not completely going in with no food in your stomach. But do not do anything that's so overwhelming. Don't go to bed at 8 p.m. the night before the test because your parents want you to do that if that's not typically how your body functions. If your body doesn't function that way, that can only go poorly to try something brand new the night of the SAT exam. That's a 3.5-hour test. So again, thumbs up. I don't typically encourage this, but if your parents are those parents that are over your back and constantly telling you that you got to go to bed early tonight, earlier than you normally do, if your normal bedtime is at 10:30, 11 p.m., that's usually when you go to bed, then go to bed at that time. Don't go to bed at 8 p.m. just because your parents say so. Again, very rarely in these videos do I encourage you to do something against your parents. I want to stay positive and know that your parents have your best interests in mind, but that is one of those examples where we have had students who wake up way too groggy, right? They're so tired because they've had too much sleep, and that is a real thing. So again, think about that as you start to approach this exam. It's a question that we get all the time from students. What should I do the night before the test? So on that note, and before we transition to the second part of the lesson today, I want to also have you guys take a look at five things to have the night before. The 5 essential items to have ready the night before the SAT. Okay, so check that out. Again, if you have those items ready, what we want to do, the most important thing we can do going into this exam, with especially if you have the test coming up. If you have it in 3 months, then this is still really helpful information, I think. But you might not have to use it this week. If you have the test coming up very soon, you need to be thinking about, how do I reduce the stress on test day? We say this all the time to all of our students, and I highly encourage you guys to look out for this. We always say control what you can control. Okay, control what you can control. And what you'd be amazed by is, over the years, I have seen so many students not do this. Control what you can control. There are going to be factors during the test that are outside of your control. You might have a bad proctor. You might have somebody that's really annoying sitting next to you that constantly asks questions of the proctor and it's just distracting you. These things happen, and that is not really something that you can control. What you can control is not having any stress the morning of the test. Again, thumbs up if that makes sense. That if you have all of the most important items ready to go, if you've done your warm-up, if you've done really the important aspects of getting ready, just like you do for any other important event in your life, then all of a sudden the things that you can't control are are minimized, because you have done everything else, right? Your stress level might be at 20% instead of 80%, and now all of a sudden those annoying things that could happen in the testing environment don't affect you nearly as much, because you were at 20% stress level instead of 80%. So now you might go from 20 to 40 with all the annoying people, right? But you're not going to go from 80 to 100, and that's extremely important. So again, thumbs up if this makes sense. This idea, control what you can control. Control what you can control. Very, very critical. Very, very, very critical as we look to take these next steps. Okay? Next steps. So that's it in terms of the questions that we typically get asked, and some of the questions that we had sent in over the course of the last few days. That's a typical breakdown of some of those questions with regards to the actual test day and what we should be focusing on looking at. Now, having said that, there are other really important things that we need to take a look at, and this relates to the scoring, right, and how we actually go into this test and how we approach it. One of the things that I think is very, very important, and again, we ask all of our students to do this, we always ask our students to be thoughtful about this, is to set realistic expectations for yourself. Okay? Set realistic expectations. Sorry guys, we have for those that were part of our review last night, I have a dog that always wants in and out of our tutoring room here. So sorry about the delay there, the distraction. It was a lot worse last night on the review. But guys, again, control what you can control extends beyond just the things that you need to have ready and all of that prior to the test. It also discusses what you need to be thinking about going into the exam. Okay, and again, the idea behind this is not that you go in with a goal score in mind. We have so many students, especially at the beginning of our programs or when they start watching these videos, ask the question, well, I want to get a 1450. So how do I do that? Any suggestions, any tips? Well, first of all, there are like a million tips I could give on how you could try to go from a 1300 to a 1450. So to think that that's going to happen in just, with one statement is unrealistic. And for those of you that have been working on this test and going through this, you know that your hard work is paying off. I know it, and I know that these videos, from the comments we get in the comments section, these videos, they represent that those students who are really thinking and being thoughtful about this process know that it's a process. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. And that's really important. It's not to be negative. It's to be realistic. It's to be realistic for your next exam, especially if it's in a few days. So thumbs up if that makes sense. And what I really mean by that is that if you are typically practice test scoring, if your practice exams, right, are typically in like the 1350 range, and we get these from students all the time, these questions about like, oh, how do I go from a 1350 to a 1450, and it's literally 2 days before the test. That can happen. Don't get me wrong, that you could have a great test day, and you could go from a 1350 to a 1450. We have seen it happen. It is rare. It's not to say that it won't happen, but it is rare. And when we think about that, then 99% of the time, it hurts students more than it helps them. For the 1 out of 100 that they improve their score from a 1350 to a 1450, that's the student that then always talks about it, like, oh, I didn't do anything. I started studying 2 days before the test, and I took one practice test and then it went up. And that student amplifies the voice of a very, very small select few that have that happen, a very small number. And a lot of times that comes down to luck, that you just have a great test day. And that can happen for everybody. It might not happen in your next exam, but it can happen. More importantly, I would say 99 out of 100 students, right, that have that mindset of, oh, I've been practice testing, or I took a practice test and I got a 1350. 99 out of 100, this works out very poorly. And the reason that it works out very poorly is because this doesn't mean anything. This improvement, other than in your mind and what a 1450 could mean to you to go to college, maybe you have a certain college in mind and you know you have to get a 1450 to get into that school. Other than that, that doesn't really mean anything. This 100-point increase doesn't mean anything. And so if you're one of the students that is just a few days before your actual exam, we absolutely do not want to be thinking about this test in terms of how do I randomly get a 100-point improvement. And the reason I say that in terms of how and being realistic is that if you go into this thinking that way, you're going to feel completely overwhelmed if you come across a question that is too much. Right? Everybody's had that feeling of like, well, this is a really difficult question. Now I'm never going to get my 1450. That is not the mindset. If you're taking a test that way, you are not maximizing your efficiency as a test taker. Thumbs up if that idea makes sense. Instead, what we want to be thinking about is if I scored a 1350 on my last practice test, or better yet, if I've been pretty consistent, right? Like maybe I got a 1340, and I got a 1390, and then I got a 1370, and those are my last 3 practice tests over the last 2 months, right? That averages out somewhere, I think, like what, to a 1360, somewhere around a 1360. And what you want to be doing instead, leading into a real test, is thinking about where can I make the easiest improvements on my 1360? Where, on the 3 practice tests that I've taken, where are the easiest improvements to be made? If none of you have used, and these will always be free, I know I keep talking about our membership program and things that you can pay for. I do think that we have curated this so that we have curated our membership program so that you really are getting premium stuff. So again, it's $3 a month. If you click the join button and become a silver member for $3, I think it's extremely helpful. But if that's not you, if you don't feel like you want to pay for stuff, we actually have created advanced score reports based on real SAT exams. So let me send the. I'm gonna post these here. My recommendation is that you take a look at these advanced score reports. Star Tutors SAT score report. And if you've taken any one of the College Board tests recently, I would recommend plugging my answers into those score reports. Again, they're free. You can download them. You can plug in your answers. And what that will tell you is the exact question types you're missing on each section of the SAT exams. So check those out. I mean, again, I can't do any harm, right? I really believe that. I think that you can get a lot out of those score reports. But instead of thinking about how do I improve from a 1350 to a 1450, which is just a completely arbitrary number, right? Other than knowing what you need to get into colleges, think about if I get a 1360 on average, what 4 questions, just 4 question types, where can I find those? When I plug those into that advanced score report, where can I find the 4 questions that I absolutely know how to do? Because for those that have seen our review sessions, please remember that 4 questions is equivalent to roughly 40 points. Now, it changes, but we can make a pretty definitive statement that on average, if you get 4 additional questions right, that's going to get you a 40-point increase. How much easier and how much less stressful is it to think about 4 additional questions rather than thinking about going from a 1350 and what am I going to do to get a 100-point increase? That is the wrong way to approach this on test day or test week even, because that just adds to the anxiety. So can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Thumbs up, guys, if that makes sense. Okay, very critical that we approach it in this way of where can I find the 4 questions over the next 2 days? Because usually I'm a big believer in not thinking about the test the day before, because most students, the reason I say that is not because I don't think it can be helpful. It's because most students don't approach this in the right way, to be honest. Right? Most students go into this thinking about where am I going to find how am I going to improve my score by 500 points in one day? That's not going to happen in all likelihood. But it's highly likely that you could improve your score by 4 questions in 40 points over the next 2 days And if you have that mindset, by all means, that's the way that I want you to approach this. So again, thumbs up below the video if that makes sense. Okay, thumbs up if that makes sense. That 4 questions to get to 40 additional points is not an unreasonable task between now and Saturday, no matter what score you're at. Okay, and then with that final thought in mind, right, with this idea, we need to be thinking about where am I on the test? I've said it in so many videos. For those that have watched our channel consistently and seen a lot of our videos, you will know that I say this in almost every video, that you want to set an expectation for yourself that is very tangible. I ask this of my own students, individual students all the time, but if you think about 1400, what does that mean to you? It doesn't mean anything is the right response. This means nothing. Because you know why it means nothing? Because you have never been graded on a 1600, right? 1400 out of 1600. You have never been graded on a 1600 scale in your life. You haven't. I can almost guarantee it, other than maybe if you've taken SAT practice tests. The PSAT isn't even graded on a 1600 scale. So I can't think of one other example for any of you that have ever been graded on a 1600 scale. So to think that we're going to approach this and think, I got to get a 1400, well, again, what does that mean? That's not how we want to approach this. Instead, we want to be thinking in our minds, okay, if I look at my last score report and going back to those advanced score reports and where you are in the test, if I look at my advanced score report and I see that, hey, I'm getting, I want to get a 1400 on the test. Well, first of all, where are those points, where are my best points coming from? Right? If I want to go from a 1350 to a 1400, where do I score the best? And if the answer to that is, let's say, in the math section, okay, typically you score, let's say you're at a 700 on math, and you want to improve that 700, and you're 650 on the other ones, you want to improve that 700 to a 750, and you want to take care of all 50 of those points on the math section. Well, let's break that down tangibly. Okay, so on this SAT scale for test 9, if you guys want to follow along, I'll post this in the chat as well, so you guys can follow along. This is now on, I'm going to post this. SAT test 9. You guys can also look through this. Okay, so again, guys, I'm not sure if you're not a member. I'm not sure if you guys can see the chat right now. Again, it's a members-only chat to ask your questions. We had some of our members send them in. If you're interested in joining the membership program, hit the join button below. But in any case, if you type in scoring SAT test number 9 in just a Google search, you'll be able to find this test form, this scoring form. And what I want you to be able to think about is, if I'm at a 700 on the math test and I want to get to a 750, right? What's that going to take? Where are those points going to come from? So instead of thinking about it in terms of the number now, we're going to be thinking about it in terms of the number of questions, which is very tangible. That is something that all of you guys have thought about in your entire lives. So 48 now, 48 out of 58 needs to turn into 52 out of 58. Which means, again, that if you're trying to get a 750 on this test, that means you can skip 6 questions on the math test and still end up with 52 out of 58 on the 2 math sections, which would be equivalent to a 750. Thumbs up, guys, below the video if you understand this concept that 52 is a real number. That's something that you've been tested on your whole life. If you have a 58 question test and you get 52 of them right, what's my score? That's a very tangible and a very normal thought for all of you that have been in school. 750, that is not a tangible thought because you've never been graded on that scale before. So going into the test, the week leading up for anybody that's taking the exam, whether that be this week or a week in the future, you want to be approaching this as, where can I find those additional questions that allow me to improve my score by 50 points, not that randomly allow my score to go up by 400 points. Okay, that's the best way to approach this. And I know that, and the reason that these skills have translated, guys, is because I've worked for a lot of different companies for SAT and ACT prep. And part of the reason we started Star Tutors was because people were paying exorbitant amounts of money for something that really didn't help them, in my opinion. So we started this YouTube channel in the company because I realized that when I was a kid, what made me a great test taker was never, and this was a problem too, let me clarify that. Yeah, this was a huge problem in my life, was I never thought about the next day, let alone college. And that's a horrible trait, right? In all likelihood, that's a horrible trait. In very rare circumstances, and it happened to be the SAT or the ACT that rare circumstance happened, but I was never thinking about anything in the future. But the reason that made me a great test taker, and what I realized and why we started the company when nobody else, any company that trained me as a tutor or as a teacher, never taught this stuff, which was crazy in my mind, was the thing that made me a great test taker was I was never thoughtful about what this meant in the grand scheme of things. I was just very competitive with, can I get this next question right? And if the kid next to me who has studied for hours and hours and wants to go to Harvard, if that student is not going to give up, then I'm not going to give up. And for whatever reason, that mindset, never thinking about the next day and then being competitive on test day, allowed me to do extremely well on these exams. If you have that mindset, you can do extremely well too, and you can change your mindset between now and your next test, guaranteed. That's a flip of the switch. So thumbs up if that makes sense, guys. That's a flip of the switch to say, you know what, instead of thinking about getting a 1400, right, instead of getting a 1400 or thinking about getting a 1400, which just completely overwhelms me every time because it makes, I feel like my parents are going to be disappointed. I feel like I'm not going to get into the school I want to get into. Let's not think about that anymore. Let's think about how on the math test am I going to go from 48 questions to 52 questions in the next 2 days, right? If I'm taking the test really soon. And if you find yourself in that boat, that's not a very hard thing to do. You plug your answers into the advanced score reports that we have on our website. You plug those in, you find the 4 questions that you shouldn't have missed, right? And typically those 4 questions can often come from simple mistakes, right? You can just eliminate simple mistakes, and you can go into your next exam thinking, if I get 52, meaning that most importantly, I can skip 6 questions, right? If I skip 6 questions, I know that I can get 52, I can get those other 52 questions right. Right? Think about that conceptually. If your math teacher today told you that you're going to take a big test, a big math test, and if you get 52 out of 58 questions right, which let me remind you, in the American school system, right? Let me find some space here. 52 out of 58 questions, right, in the American school system would translate roughly to an 89%, right? It's about 10% less. Just a little bit more than 10%. You've missed 10% of the questions. If you skip 6, okay, you get an 89%. But I just told you that a 52 out of 58 translates to a 750 on this math test. Guys, 750 on the math section of the SAT is in the 99th percentile. If you get a 750, you are in the 99th percentile on the math test. Or 98th, right? Top 2%. So just for the approach, just for thinking about this in a different way, you have now improved your score by 10 percentage points based on how the SAT is scored versus how you're scored in school. Think about that. Think about if your math teacher came to you today and said, you know what, if you have 58 question test, and it's going to be a long test and blah, 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 right? But if you skip the 6 hardest questions and you find 52 out of 58 questions that you know how to answer, that you can do, and you skip the 6 hardest questions, I'll give you a 99 on that test. That is what the College Board, that is what the SAT is giving you every single time you sit down to take any one of the sections on this exam. Yet so many students go into this test thinking about, how do I get to a 750? Wrong mindset. It should be, do I know how to do the next question in front of me? And we have to be realistic, right? If you're not 48 out of 58, right? If you're 38 out of 58, it's realistically unlikely that you're going to improve by 14 questions if your test is in 2 days. I always like to set the benchmark at 4 questions. I think that even 2 days away from a big test, you can sit there and you can find 4 questions, which is equivalent to roughly 40 points. You can find 4 questions that you can improve in 2 days. I really believe that. That's your mindset. How do I go from 48 out of 58 to 52 out of 58 in the next 2 days? Or how do I go from 38 to 42? Or how do I go from 42 to 46? Or how do I go from 25 to 29? Whatever the number is, how do I improve by 4 questions in the next 2 days? And if I do that, I know that I am going to significantly improve my score because 40 points is a very, very big difference maker on this exam. 40 to 50 points. Again, guys, thumbs up below the video if that thought, that concept makes sense. Because if it does, if you go in with that mindset, that's a question we always get. Well, how do I improve my score? Wrong thought. How do I get a few more questions right? Because if I do that, my score will come with it. And it's way more tangible to think in our mind, okay, 1 question, how do I get 1 more question right? And for those that are watching this, we filmed a video a couple days ago that I think exemplifies this better than any video we've maybe ever made. It's our Star Tutors 3-pass math method. Let me post this. Tutors 3, and something that we developed ourselves. 3-pass math strategy. And truth be told, I took a few computer science classes as a kid and in college. Unfortunately, I didn't have the determination or discipline to be a computer science major. It's very hard, or a math major for that matter, even though I was a pretty good math student as a kid. You guys can see from some of our videos that I haven't reviewed enough math probably to be doing this professionally, even though I am a math tutor and I should be doing more. In any case, this development was based on computer science algorithms. It really is mathematical algorithms actually that are used in computer science. Okay, it's called the sorting method, and if you guys watch that video, everything that I just described to you in terms of how to approach this exam is described in that 3-pass math video that I just posted in the chat. And by the way, guys, again, I'm not sure if you guys can see the chat, but if you can't, I'll go ahead and post these below as well. For those that are members, all of our members will be able to see the chat. And again, I encourage you to try to sign up for the Silver membership program if you're interested. We're going to continue to do some of these members-only chats going forward, which will always be available to all students to view. But if you want to ask your own questions, that $3 a month, again, if you're going to buy a book, if you're going to buy something related to SAT prep, I cannot tell you how much better that $3 is than any $30 you're going to spend on a book. That's just realistic. It just is. I know it for a fact, and you get a bunch of premium videos that otherwise you won't be able to see. You get the members-only chat. You're going to get members-only videos. So if you're interested in joining that Silver membership program, you click the Join button below this video, and you can join that Silver membership program and have access to a lot of really helpful videos, and as well as membership. In any case, guys, again, you guys can find all of this stuff in the video descriptions below. It just takes a little bit maybe to search for it, or on our channel if you search the playlist. You can find all of the videos that I've been posting and talking about. But the idea is, of course, to think about the mindset, to approach the mindset in the right way, not to be overall thinking about what's my score going to be or what college am I going to get into. That can all be dealt with after. Being a great test taker means putting yourself as present as possible in the moment and thinking about, can I answer this next question? If the answer to that question is no, I cannot, then you need to move on from it. And you can live to fight another day, whether that be that day or on your next SAT exam. But don't let one question, completely overwhelm you. If you don't know how to do that question, you're not going to probably figure out how to do that question in the next 30 seconds. It doesn't matter though. That one question is worth the same as the next one, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. And that's what makes a great test taker: the ability to move on, to forget about the ones that you don't know, in order to get to answer correctly the vast majority of the questions that you do know. Don't forget that all of you will be answering more than 50% of these questions. So if you let one question get you down, you're saying that I'm giving up the majority of correct answers, which is going to be true for the vast majority of you. You're giving up the majority so that you can focus on one question that doesn't matter. And that was my mindset. My thought process as a kid was never to get a 1600. It wasn't. Could I have worked hard enough to get one? Probably, realistically. I try to be as realistic with myself as possible. I was a good test taker. My mindset was, if I get a 1500, do I think I can accomplish that? And the answer to that question was yes. I love to read, and I was a pretty good math student because my mom's a math teacher. So if I wanted to get a 1500 or a 1520, right, is I think where 1520, 1550, somewhere in that range, right, 1500 to 1550, if I wanted to be in that range, I knew, hey, I know enough about this stuff that I think I can get that range, because I know then that I can skip 6 questions on the math test and still end up with a 750, which is on pace for 1500. And that's the thought process. If you're trying to get to a 1300, right, figure out the number of questions to get to a 650 on the math section. Right? I bet many of you didn't realize that if you got 43 out of 58 questions right, which means that you can skip the hardest 15 questions between the 2 math tests, skip 15 questions, you would still end up with a 650. And for those that have seen our guessing technique, it gets even better than that, right? As an example, on the reading section, if you were to just answer 3 passages, which would be roughly 34 questions, you would still end up with a 300, right? 30, I don't know why the SAT does this. You'd still be at a 300 for answering 34 out of 52 questions. But it gets better than that, because if you guess on all the multiple choice questions related to the reading section the rest of the way down, right, you still have you've skipped 18 questions at this point. That doesn't mean that there's no penalty for guessing on the SAT. That doesn't mean that you should just leave those questions blank. I'm never advocating for that. We want to be the most efficient test takers that we can be. If you've watched our review lesson from yesterday, or any of our reviews, or any of our videos for that matter, for anything, you'll know that 30, or rather 18 questions using a proper guessing technique really will result in probably getting an additional 5 questions answered correctly. So instead of 34, you're really looking at 39 or 40, which is equivalent to a 320, right, to 330. That's really truly what you're looking at by only answering 3 passages on the reading section, right? The biggest misconception about the SAT and the ACT is that timing matters at all. It doesn't matter for 1 second. All that matters is being 100% accurate on the questions that you know how to do, and I guarantee if that changes your focus and you're no longer stressed about timing, you're only focused on accuracy, your score, whether it be in 2 days when you take the test or in 2 years when you take the test, your score will absolutely 100% of the time go up if this becomes your focus going forward. 100% accuracy on the questions that you know. You in particular, you know. If that's your mindset change, you can improve your score. For all of you, realistically, you can improve your score beyond the 40 points. The 40 points that I mentioned in the middle of this video correspond to content questions. If your mindset has always been about timing and about rushing and about trying to get a certain score to get into a school, if you change your mindset, that's really going to be a 100-point improvement. And that's what I was talking about when we do rarely. Sometimes we see students just, the mindset changes, and it can change for everybody, but it's rare. But when the mindset changes and it clicks, if that happens the week before the test, you could see a score go from 1350 to 1500 because all of a sudden the student has realized how they're supposed to take the test, and that can be a 100-point improvement with a simple mindset change. I kid you not. But it's about you being able to psychologically implement that, and that's harder. That's more difficult than I'm making it sound right now because you have tested in a different way your entire lives. All right, guys, so that was a lot of talking. I'm out of breath. I hope everybody got a lot out of that. So, guys, again, thumbs up if this all made sense. Thumbs up below the video if this made sense. For all of our members going forward, you'll have access to the live chat. You'll be able to see all of the live chat moving forward for members. I encourage you guys to join the membership program. The silver membership is $3 a month. If nothing else, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. That's free, and turn on all notifications. Subscribing to the channel is free. You can turn on all notifications and know when our next videos are going to be made. On top of that, what else is free? Well, Star U, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Star U is also free. Download Star U in the App Store on Google Play. It's pinned at the top of the board. It's also in the video description below. If you do not have your Star U student account set up, please make sure that you set that up. Again, it's free, and within Star U, you get access to 100 lesson chapters. Right here, you can see these lesson chapters and 500 free SAT practice problems, all related to the most important content on the test. Okay, so if nothing else, I don't know why you wouldn't at least start with that and start with subscribing to the channel, because those are both free, especially if you liked what you heard today. Again, guys, thumbs up below the video if this all makes sense. If you got a lot out of today, that thrills me. I hope that I hope that you guys continue to improve and want to work hard. We'll keep making these videos for as long as you guys are willing to continue to work hard. And otherwise, we'll have one final video released called SAT, our SAT hype video, to get you guys in the right mindset, right mood going forward. But look out for that video. The SAT hype video will be released tomorrow. So check that out. Again, if you turn on all notifications, you'll get a notification when that's going to be released tomorrow before your test if you are taking it in 2 days. Regardless, if you're taking it in 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, good luck in your preparation. Keep working hard. Check out those playlists on the channel, and we will see you guys soon for the next live lesson live stream. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Good luck on your next exam. Good luck on your practice.